watch out, you might get splashed. Is that midstream enough?
Mix it up though. Yeah. Do a little bit more maybe. Good enough. Whatever it is.
That's thin oil, man.
So if many of you Toyota fanboys and girls know these latest generation Tundras here, they have engine problems or potentially engine problems where there's reports of them, the crank bearings going and the engines needing to be repaired or replaced, whatever the case may be. So of course I do have one of these with the newer twin turbo 3.4 liter, and it doesn't really seem to affect the hybrid or non-hybrid more or less. It happens to both. Toyota did issue a recall, and the recall was for the non-hybrids only, around 100,000 vehicles. Mine was not included in it. I've got about 6,000 miles, 10,000 kilometers on this truck. It's a Canadian truck. But again, they kind of just seem to fail when people are on long road trips and whatnot. And I don't want to be out traveling across the country one day and this thing fails. So machining debris was supposedly left in the block after manufacturing. So it's kind of a hit and miss. I did just bring this in for another recall at my Toyota dealer where I bought it for a transmission reprogramming, I think it was. And I asked the service advisor if they have rebuilt any engines or had any problems with them. And he said they haven't, and they do sell a lot of Tundras at this dealership supposedly. And he did say it's less than 1%. At this time, most of them are still lower kilometers, so still very low odds, but yeah, there's a big recall going on. So of course, what I did was I went and got the Blackstone oil test kit from Blackstone Labs. I'm going to share the results of this, hopefully on this video. I'm not going to break it into two. So yeah, the results are coming up next.
So it took a few weeks, but I do have the results here. But if you like what you see on this channel, I want you to like and subscribe because I am trying to grow it. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers, monetize, and then spend every penny I get from this on cars and things like this. So anyway, here are the results for mine. Before I go over them, actually, I wanted to say that I did look on the forums and I got other people's reports too. I'm going to compare to mine. Lots of people testing these Tundras lately. But yeah, let's go over mine here. The comments pretty much breaks it down on all of these reports. All the reports I'm using are from Blackstone. There's many companies that test them, but I just chose Blackstone reports to keep everything likewise and easy to read here. So congrats on the new Tundra. Its first oil sample has quite a bit of metal and silicon in it, but that's to be expected after the first oil change. Break-in and assembly sealers/lubes likely explain the extra metal and silicon in here, and we should see them improve with each subsequent oil change. Eventually, after another oil change or 3, we should see results that look like the universal averages, which are based on 7,700 kilometer intervals for the engine type. No coolant or fuel contamination is present. Low insolubles speak to effective oil filtration. So far, so good. So my sample was 9,500 kilometers, and I do have the hybrid model of this truck. That is just below 6,000 miles. I'm not going to do these 3,000 or 5,000 mile oil changes. I'm going to stick to 10,000 or more. 16,000 kilometers or 10,000 miles is the actual factory or the Toyota service intervals. So again, I'm going to do a little bit more frequently, but I'm not going to do it every 5,000 miles or 3,000 like some people are doing. It's a little bit overkill. But let's look at the results here. And I'm just going to focus on the metal. Everything else looked good. So aluminum had 17 parts per million. Chromium 2, iron 27, copper 32, lead 0, tin 1, molybdenum 590, and so on. Nickel 0, manganese 3. Silver had 2 parts per million, and I want to keep an eye on this because it does come up in other reports, and there's a comment made, and I'll get to that in a second from one of these other reports. And they do highlight them in bold. I don't know if you can see on the screen there, but those are the ones that are above the average. But again, this is normal for a new engine in the break-in period. So here is another one from the Tundra forums. This is from a truck that had 9,800 miles on it. So they waited the full break-in period. They didn't change it early like 1,000 miles like some people did, but let's read the comments here. These results look normal for a break-in sample. There's extra metal and silicon in the oil due to the combination of a longer than average oil run and initial wear-in. After another oil change or 2, these levels should look more like the levels in our universal averages column. which reflect usual wear for this engine type after 3,100 miles of use. We didn't find any fuel or coolant in the oil, and the oil's physical properties look normal. Check back on break-in after another 9,000 miles. If things look good as we suspect, a longer oil run should be fine. And when comparing those to, say, mine, they're very similar, higher because they waited a little bit longer. I had about 6,000 miles, and this one had 9,800 miles. So, of course, more metal was found in the oil, which is completely normal. Now, here's the report that was concerning and that they kind of threw a red flag on it. It's pretty interesting. So this is a 3.4 liter of the twin turbo. It looks like a non-hybrid here. It has 18,000 miles on the vehicle and 3,000 miles since the last oil change. And the comments read, silver is the main item of interest in your Tundra's second sample. Silver can come from harmless solder, but it can also come from the bearings. We're leaning towards harmless solder since this engine is still pretty young, but as a precaution, listen for a knocking sign of bearing wear until next time. The rest of the wear profile looks great for the 3,000 mile interval, and there isn't any coolant or dirt contamination to contend with. A little fuel is present, but 1.3% isn't anything to worry about, as this much is more often than not from normal use factors. Nice results overall. So looking at this report, the iron and the copper and all the rest of the metals look good except for the silver, which they flagged, and the universal average is 2 on these vehicles. So quite like double, 2.5 times the universal average. And they're mentioning that the bearings may contain silver, or usually do contain silver. I did look for other reports that, were really bad, and there was really none, and nobody had talked about failures in these, people that posted on these forums. But I would have liked to have seen something that was, catastrophically failed and seen a report prior to that. But I didn't seem to track any of that down. And here's a couple of other reports, 30,000 miles on the vehicle, 6,000 mile intervals. Welcome to Blackstone. Hopefully we make as good a first impression as your Tundra's engine is with this sample. There's a lot to like about this data. Aluminum/tin are in the main wear metals, and they're all steady and lower than what the universal averages show, as typical for the engine type. Those averages are based on the shorter 4,800 mile oil intervals, so it's great to see that these results after a longer run. There's no contamination from excess dirt, coolant, water, or fuel dilution. The viscosity read in 0W20 spec, and the oil filter kept in solubles low. Run 8,000 miles next. Now, I did read many other reports from these forums, and they all were very similar. People in the beginning getting these oil changes, lots of metal in the initial break-in period, and not so many down the road, though. Now, my brother just did a Porsche, an old 1980s Porsche. When we sent ours in, or his Tundra's in, we also sent a sample from this Porsche, and they were all from the universal averages and looked just like this last Tundra here, which is normal. So I will be doing another sample around the 12,000 mile or 20,000 kilometer mark when I change the oil the next time, keeping an eye on that silver. They usually range between 0 and 2 from the other reports I read. Mine's at 2, so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it stays down and doesn't get up to 5 and become concerning like that one report. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.